your approach to budget making and governance has been marked by fiscal prudence. You've reduced the fiscal deficit target from 4.4 to 4.3. You're obviously careful about how you spend money. I want to ask you what you make of political parties in election season come up with a slew of freebies. For example, 10,000 rupees were given to women in Bihar. Now there's an election in Assam and elsewhere, and all parties, including yours, are doing the same thing. Especially in the context of now so much focus on the debt to GDP and your effort to bring it down. One is politician Nirmala Sitharaman, the other is Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. How do they talk to each other on this? And do you sometimes counsel your party members in states like Bihar, Assam, elsewhere, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra? And we're seeing in states like Maharashtra, they're now struggling to live up to some of those election promises. So how do you look at this very slippery slope that we are currently on when it comes to freebies?
No, first thing, if a state has resources and if they think they are able to fund it through budget, technically no one of us should have a problem. If the budgeted amount given for the freebie is shown and taken approval of through the House, the State Assembly, none of us can have an objection.
No, but they cut back on revenue expenditure gets cut. So you're not spending on productive, say, infrastructure builds. You're just juggling within the budget by spending more on welfare and less on public infrastructure.
No, when I say if your budget can provide for it, I'm not indicating juggling. I actually mean that you have resources which can fund some of this, you're welcome to do it. And that's not at the cost of capital expenditure. They are different heads altogether. I assume the capital expenditure will happen, and over and above that, if you have resources, you should. And if you want to go ahead, please take the approval of the Assembly and go ahead. But what happens is, such things get supported by borrowings, which are beyond their means. And when I say beyond their means, anything that goes through the Assembly or the elected representative scrutiny will bring in that element of responsibility to say, can you or can you not afford it? And the House can decide on it. Whereas when you tell the House something and not tell the House something else, and that something else goes through your state-owned public sector undertakings, then it is a sleight of hand which is wrong. And in that, even there is a margin that you can give. And what is that margin? If that public sector undertaking, which is in the state government's domain, earns its own revenue, it has a product to sell and it earns its money, and therefore you want to temporarily borrow from them and then serve your costs, even then it is accommodatable. But if it's a welfare board, which itself is dependent on the budgetary allocation, and it has no revenue source of its own, you still make them borrow. And then from the budgetable items, such as excise duty, you say for the next 5 years that will go for repaying that loan. That's not right. Because the elected House will have to clear what you're saying. And then there will be an element of answerability and accountability. When you're not being answerable, when you do this, it also crosses the legislated FRBM, the fiscal responsibility and budgetary management that you're committed in your House, and there is a law governing it. You exceed 3% by making all these boards and others to go out and borrow for something on which they don't have paying capacity.
Which state are you most concerned about? The
No,
state of which state's
there are
finances?
a few states which have done it over and over and over again.
Which states' actions concern you the most? Punjab,
I'll not name
Telangana?
them. I'll not name them here through the media. No, I will not name them. But let me also tell you, I'm not just talking about these things and leaving it to be where it is. I've called some of these states and told them that, please, your borrowing is unsustainable. I can always curb you from borrowing, that's all right, but you have these kind of unauthorized ways. But even otherwise, the earlier borrowings have been at a very high cost. You're paying 11%, 11.5%, 12% in some cases. I've invited them to sit with the finance ministry's officials and restructure their total debt basket so that the interest which they pay the burden can be brought down. And I'm happy to say, I'm not doing this only for BJP states. Opposition ruled states have benefited from it. And I would say here again, not taking the name, a chief minister went to the assembly and thanked me. He doesn't belong to my party. And said, Government of India has helped us, as a result of which my burden, service burden, has come down of the loan, which I have to pay interest and everything else.
This was Revant Reddy.
I'm not naming anybody here. Okay? So, as central government, without being harsh, but yet conveying the message that debt has to be carefully managed, you can't leave intergenerational burden on our citizens. We are trying to do that.
Okay, I'm going to get Jay Kumar to ask the question. Go for it, sir.
Honorable